Hello everyone and welcome once again back to a true behind the scenes video here on Light Stories. In this video we're going to look at the practicalities of building an outdoor aerial rig for circus performers, the challenges of working with the great British weather forever changing, and finally the pure joy that it is when you work with a professional performer and aerialist such as Peri Leriche. Okay, so let's start right at the very beginning. Now, just before the first lockdown, I had been invited up to Birmingham by an aerialist and dancer, Jessica Reeve, someone I had photographed before, to shoot some aerial pictures in her back garden. Her father was a rigger, and he had built her own frame right in the back garden, which, as you can see, pretty well took up the entire space. It was a great shoot, great success, and as I drove away, I did wonder why I didn't have something similar in my own property. Then, of course, lockdown happened and we all retreated to our caves. So during that period of time, I was researching to see if I could find a local rigging company that could build something for me. Of course, they were all out of business, like all the performers were out of business for this particular period of time. But I was fortunate enough to find a local company that could do it for me, and not only that, but would be able to provide all the safety calculations and the TUV certification. So once lockdown ended, the rig was commissioned and the build began. Prior to the rig being built, I had placed the 4 posts where I expected the feet to go, and calculated the sunrise and sunset so we could make most of the natural weather and background, obviously for the artist and any pictures that I took. The rig, when it was finally built, was huge, far bigger than I anticipated. Looking at the plans, it looked fine, but when you see something that's 6 meters square and 5.5 meters high, it is big, and it was a long way up there to the top. Lockdown was a terrible time for anybody in the entertainment industry. So if they were a dancer, an aerialist, a circus performer, or whatever, they obviously couldn't work at all. But they had to maintain their training and flexibility and strength throughout the period, not knowing when it was going to end. After a bit of cyber stalking, I stumbled across a local person, Peri Leriche, and I could see that she was obviously quite experienced in aerial work, so I thought she'd be ideal for the guinea pig on the aerial rig. Now, I knew she was good, I just didn't know how good, because Peri and her boyfriend Marche normally work on international cruise ships. And as you can see from their social media, their performance and the quality of their performance is absolutely outstanding. So after lockdown finished, Peri came down with her mum Maxine to put the rig through its paces. Naturally, safety is an important issue with something like this, and I had all the crash mats and all the equipment was safety rated. I had public liability insurance, and also there was a liability waiver every performer signed before going on the rig. So everything was legal and above board. The shoot took place in May. We started at 4:30 in the afternoon. As you can see, the weather was fairly good, quite sunny, but there was a fair amount of cloud about, which was moving fairly quickly. So the sun was forever coming in and out of shadow. Maxine was a great help using the Californian Sunbounce Micro Mini, which is one of my favorite reflectors. She was able to bounce the light back onto Peri while she was suspended from the center of the frame. And you can see from some of the pictures here exactly the details of each shot. As good as it was supporting Peri from the center of the frame, it didn't allow me much flexibility to change my angle because I was getting a rear leg in the picture. So we moved the support to the outer perimeter of the frame to get a much more variation in the imagery, which you can see here. The added advantage of moving Peri to the perimeter of the frame meant that I could use some Manfrotto super clamps and magic arms to permanently hold the reflectors in place and to save Maxine a bit of work. So time moved on and Peri changed positions to another side of the perimeter of the rig as the sun had come round, giving us some very dramatic skies. So now was the time to bring out the flash. However, the first technical problem was, of course, the flash, being Bowens Gemini Esprit 500s, didn't have high-speed sync capability. I was using Pocket Wizard 2s as the triggers, and I needed to get the shutter speed of the Sony A7 III down to 1/200th of a second to be on the safe side. So how do I do that? The answer is to use a variable ND filter to get the shutter speed down to an acceptable level. Here I have the ND filter, so I would set the camera on aperture priority. I set the aperture at what I wanted it to be, which was f4. I then adjusted the ND filter until I could see that the shutter speed would have dropped to 1/200th of a second. I then set the camera back to manual at 1/200th of a second, leaving the ND filter where it was, and then I turned the flash on. The flash was then adjusted in power and location. I had to move it forward and back from Peri to get the right lighting effect. But generally the flash was running at about half power on the battery packs, the travel packs that come with the Bowens. Towards the end of the shoot, another friend, Jim, arrived to give some assistance with the reflectors and lights, which was a great help. Ultimately, I think the results speak for themselves. Peri is a phenomenal performer and it was such a pleasure to work with her on this particular occasion. And I worked with her several times after this. And of course, you can catch her and her boyfriend Marche on some luxury cruise somewhere. I shall put some links on the screen. Safety is the most important thing to do on a shoot like this, and you must always remember that for performers and aerialists, it is considerably more tiring to hold poses for photographs than it is to perform dynamically. In other words, when they're moving and transitioning from position to position and shape to shape, it is easier for them and less tiring than it is to hold a position for 30 seconds, a minute or so, so that you get the shot. So keep that in mind, and it's important to make sure the performer isn't too tired, takes regular rests, and you don't shoot for too long. Continually trying to juggle flash or reflector is an ongoing problem. Obviously a spare pair of hands or two is a great help, and certainly high-speed sync would make a big difference, but you need to consider the amount of time taken to set it up, and personally I think it's best to get it set up beforehand and just bring the flashes in or reflectors in as you need them. Well, that was a long video, but I do hope you found it interesting looking at what goes on behind the scenes on something like an aerial rig. That shoot was the first of, 30 or so shoots that I've done on the rig since then. And as I say, the rig is only up 2 months of the year. So if you're interested in doing or performing on something like this in the future, then keep an eye on my social media. So please leave any comments below and do drop any feedback if you want to see some more videos like this, and I will put them together for you. So until next time, folks, enjoy your photography and take care out there. Bye for now.